Hey guys, welcome back to our channel.
Hey family, today we're gonna tell you how we met. We have a little ongoing discussion. She thinks it was a blind date. I don't think it was a blind date, but we're gonna leave that up to you guys to decide.
Yeah, we've been actually arguing about this a lot off camera, so it'll be interesting to hear what you guys think about the setup that happened on the day that we actually met each other. And as you could tell by the title of this video, I think that it was a blind date because I felt like it was more of a setup arrangement, whereas I
I
think
disagree. It wasn't a blind date because she knew everything what was going on, step by step.
all right, so we'll get into it, and you guys let us know down below. And if you have any feedback, we're open to hear it.
All right, ladies first. Go ahead. Tell tell your side of the blind date.
Okay. Um, so how did I meet this lovely guy that I'm sitting next to here? And ultimately, how did he become my husband? So how did we meet? It was the summer of 2015. I was actually a college student at the time. I went to SUNY Purchase College, which was the best experience ever. We'll talk more about that later. But during this particular summer, I was on summer vacation from college. And in college, I actually worked at IHOP. I was a server for a really long time. I started out working at IHOP during my high school years, and during the summers, I would come back into the city, and I would typically just work at IHOP for the summer to make some extra money. And so this particular summer, I actually came back and I found out that the IHOP location that I normally work at was pretty full for the summer. So I ended up having to take a job on Long Island in Hempstead. And so I actually didn't really know any of the other waitresses there. I was only going to be there for about 2.5 months while I was on summer vacation. So I didn't really get a chance to make a lot of relationships. But I did make one really, really good connection. I made a really good friend. Her name was Tiffany.
My cousin.
And it just so happened to be his cousin, like you just said. And so we worked together for about, I want to say, a month and a half before the day that we actually ended up meeting. So Tiffany and I, we became really close friends. We hung out after work from time to time. And like I said before, I didn't really know anyone else. So she basically was my lifeline while I was at work that summer in Hempstead.
Mm-hmm.
So one lovely Tuesday, we were working the morning shift, and the morning shift was really busy, as you could imagine, at IHOP. And Tiffany and I, we would typically work together during the shift. Sometimes she would take some of my tables, I would take some of hers, and we would also get to know like some friends of each other's, because as I said before, I was from the city, and Tiffany was more so from like that Hempstead area, so she had some friends that was in the area, so she would introduce me to some people from time to time. And on this particular Tuesday, Chris actually came to the restaurant, and he was coming in for breakfast on his day off, apparently.
Hungry.
Yeah, he was really hungry. And so, of course, Tiffany, his cousin, decided to serve him. And at some point during the shift, she decided to introduce me to him. At first, I didn't really want to come and say hi because I knew that this was her cousin, and she sounded like she wanted to hook me up with him. She let me know that he was working at a particular place at the time, and that he was cute, and that he was fun, and some other like positive qualities about him. And I just didn't see how that was relevant to me, so I didn't really care to meet him. But after, her asking me 2 or 3 times, I just went back and I introduced myself to him. Do you have like any like differing views so far about like what I said? What's your perspective?
Just a small, but go ahead. You can finish your story, then I'll tell my story.
Okay. Um, so we met, and then after some time, the shift went on a little bit, and after I met him, like we got into some small talk with Tiffany and some other coworkers of ours. One other important thing to note is that Tiffany, his cousin, actually had a boyfriend named Jonathan. And he also worked with us at IHOP, and he was also there that day of the shift. And I also was pretty cool with him as well. And so that's very important for later on. So we finished out the shift, and towards the tail end of the shift, Tiffany let me know that she was going to have an outing with some of her friends over at the beach after work. And she asked me if I wanted to go to the beach with her and her friends and her cousin after we finished work. I told Tiffany that I would need to go home and get ready, and I wasn't sure if I would be able to make it back out to the beach because we got out of work around like 3 o'clock or so. And she just told me, hey, like we're just going to be hanging out at the beach. Nothing particular about the hangout session. We might get some drinks and we might get some food and we will just eat at the beach or whatever. So I agreed to go. And the plan was that we would all go home after our shift and we would try to meet back at the restaurant around 4 or 5 so that we can all head to the beach together. So you have any differing points of view?
No.
No different points of view. Okay. So we agree so far. So then outside of that, I go home. I shower, obviously, get ready for the beach. I change my clothes. I get my bathing suit, pack a bag, and I head back over to the restaurant. Probably took me about like an hour and a half to do all of that and to come back. When we get back to the restaurant, obviously, I pull up. Tiffany pulls up with Jonathan, and Chris pulls up in his car as well. And at the time, I'm thinking that there were going to be other people that actually joined us. But the shocker of the day was that it was just going to be us 4 that goes to the beach. So that, my friends, is where I feel like it was kind of a setup, because I thought there would be more people, and somehow I ended up with Chris, who I just met probably a few hours prior. And when I say just met, you guys have to realize that I say that very loosely because I was working and we may have exchanged a few words and we may have, had some talking and passing. However, I was working, so it wasn't like I actually got to know this guy at all. And suddenly I'm in a situation where I am with a couple and him, and we're going to the beach for the first time. So I'll stop there and let Chris give you his take on how we initially met and what he thought was going to happen that afternoon. And then we'll dive into what actually happened from the point of after we met up at the restaurant. What happened after we met up at the restaurant?
So I woke up one morning. I was off from work. I said, my cousin texted me, said that she's at work. Come see her since I'm off. So I said, all right, no problem. I'm off. I'm hungry. So I went to IHOP, got my breakfast. I'm talking to my cousin Tiffany. And she said, there's a new girl that work here. I'm going to introduce you. At the time, that was Kalia. Kalia was working back and forth. She kept on going past. So when my cousin finally introduced us, that's when we spoke. So she went back to work. I'm not looking for anybody. She's not looking for anybody. We're just chopping it up when she did stop. So my cousin said, Chris, since you're off, let's go do something. I said, what do you want to do? She said she's going to think of something. And she came up with the idea of going to the beach. It's going to be she, Jonathan, and a couple of friends. So I said, okay. And then she asked me, should she invite Kalia? So I said, yeah, go ahead. It's fine. I wasn't thinking anything of it at all. So Kalia said yes. Um, my cousin, I dropped her home and her boyfriend. I went home, got my stuff, picked up Tiffany and Jonathan on my way to the beach because I think we met at the beach. I'm not too sure if we met at the beach or we met at IHOP.
We met at IHOP.
On my way, I asked her who else was going. She said nobody's responding. So I said, so while I'm driving, she said nobody's picking up. It may just be us four. So I said, okay, cool, no problem. It honestly didn't bother me. I was like, fine, it's cool. It's a beach day.
So I didn't really realize that they were in the car with you. I thought they drove as well. But again, guys, you have to forgive us. Some of the details might be a little fuzzy because this was, again, back in 2015.
8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years ago. So I think I got it all together, but we might be glazing over a couple things. But I thought they drove there by themselves, but they might have driven with you. I don't know. But okay, so now we're all in the parking lot of IHOP and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do next. So I approached Tiffany on the side and I say, hey, like, where are your other friends? And she's like, oh, well, no one else can make it, so it's just going to be us four. And so in that moment, I knew that, like, I was being set up. And the reason I say that is because Tiffany was adamant about me meeting Chris. Remember, when I was at work, Tiffany was adamant about me meeting Chris. She was putting so much positive things in the air about him, which I appreciate because I wouldn't have my husband today. And now it was just so coincidental that now we're in a situation where it's almost like a double date kind of situation and not what I thought it would be, which is more of a group setting. But nonetheless, I agreed to go because I had already went all the way home and I already got my clothes and I already commuted back. It just didn't make sense for me to just say no, and I didn't want to be rude. So I agreed to go. So we ended up all getting into Chris's car. We drove out to the beach, to Jones Beach to be specific. We got over to Jones Beach. Everything was fine. We ended up getting some lunch or dinner from the concession stands. I think we had like chicken tenders and fries, nothing special at all. And we sat on the beach kind of and hung out for a bit. And it was a good time. We had a good time, right?
Yeah, we did. So, from my point of view, I don't think it was set up because I think Tiffany was trying to... that's her only friend there because she didn't really like much anybody there. So her cousin there, so I'm guessing she was just happy. Hey, this is my cousin, you know, meet him. So we got to the beach. This is where things turn for the worse, where it wasn't a blind date, in my honest opinion. So Tiffany and her boyfriend start to argue. Man, clearly looking at you like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, this is crazy. And Jonathan left. We don't know where he went.
Right. And just to say, imagine being in a situation where you meet someone for the first time and the person that you have in common now is completely upset. You no longer have that person for support, and now you are relying on the person that you just kind of met to kind of like hang out with and be around and figure out the situation with. It was definitely very awkward, but I guess that helped us like build a good rapport very quickly.
Yes. So after she and Jonathan argued, Jonathan was gone. We don't know where he was. We don't know where he turned.
He left the beach, guys. We are in Jones Beach, and just to set the stage for people that may not know what that looks like, right? Because not everybody's from New York, right? So Jones Beach is on Long Island, which is off of New York City, right? Mm-hmm. And it's probably, if you're like in the city, it's probably like an hour and a half from like the city center. If you wanted to drive out without traffic, with traffic, you're looking at about 2 hours driving, right? Jones Beach is not accessible by train or bus. You have to drive. And at this point, when Jonathan disappeared and he left, um, the sun was practically setting, right? Remember,
We were looking for him too.
right. Remember, like we got to the beach around like I would say at this point it's probably like 5:36 when we got to the beach. And it's summertime, so you know in the summertime the sun probably doesn't set until around like 8 o'clock, right? So we probably got to the beach around somewhere in about 6. We had dinner, we hung out a little bit, and things started going left, but then the sun started setting as well. And so Tiffany is willing to leave Jonathan, right? Even though Jonathan did walk off and he left us, right? But ultimately, we're saying, okay, we should probably look for Jonathan and not leave until we figure out where he went. Because if we leave, that means we're stranding him at the beach, right?
After looking for him, Tiffany says she's tired. She want to go. So while I'm driving my car, the two of them is in the car with me, and we make a plan to go out for later on. I said, "Are you sure you don't want to go look for Jonathan?" She's upset. She said, "No."
So again, to set the stage, she feels as if she wants to go out,
have a drink
that night, to have a drink, to enjoy herself, to let her hair down. And so therefore, when we got in the car and we're driving home, Chris and I were in the car, we're trying to be supportive of her. And so we're somehow kind of like roped into the situation, right? Because, you know, I worked all day. Chris was with us all day from like morning time. Then we went to the beach and we were at the beach practically all day. And now we're being enticed with going out at night.
Yes. So dropped her to her car. I'm driving home. Tiffany's with me because she already had clothes with her already. So the plan was to meet up to go to.
We went to a bar,
yeah.
Right? We went to a bar in Rosedale. But before we get there, just to clarify, we're in the car with Tiffany,
yes,
right?
All of us agreed to go to the bar.
And then we go where? So we're driving back from Jones Beach. We drive back to IHOP, right? Chris drops me off at IHOP because remember, that's where I left my car, right? And because I agreed to go out afterward, I had to go home and get ready. So Chris dropped me to my car and then we agreed to meet back together at the place after we both get ready because remember, we just came from the beach, so we had to shower, get dressed again for the night now, right? And then meet back up again.
So yeah, we dropped her off. Me and my cousin went by my house. Tiffany showered first. She came out of the shower. She's getting ready. I said, cool, let me go take a shower. So as soon as I came out of the shower, I'm getting dressed. I look for my cousin. She's on my bed, knocked out. I'm trying to wake her up. So I'm trying to wake her up. I call Kalia. Hey, from Tiffany's phone, because at that time I didn't have her number. Call from Tiffany's phone. I said, hey, this is going to sound weird, but Tiffany is knocked out. She's not waking up. I'm trying to wake up. She's not waking up. I am basically almost ready. I don't know how you feel, but do you still want to go out? If not, I'm fine either way. Her exact words was, I'm already dressed already. Can you come get me? So I said, are you sure? Because, we're all supposed to go out together. So she said, yeah. So we went and got her. Now you can tell your side or tell the story from here.
Right. So my side of the story and my perspective is that obviously I get in my car. I drive home. Now, I just want to set the stage again, right? Because I just want you guys to really understand the scenario here. And I want you to think about what you would do if you were in our shoes, right? So that's why I'm like slowing down the story a little bit just to really give you guys like what I was thinking in that moment. So I get home from the beach and work, right? At this point, I am completely exhausted. It has to be about 8:30, 9 o'clock at this point. It's late, right? I get home. I want to support my friend because she's had a horrible day at this point. I don't want to leave her hanging. And so therefore, I agree to go out with her, even though I'm completely exhausted. I probably had work the next day, and I just probably would have wanted to stay home after this long day, but I agreed. So I get home. As soon as I get home, I find an outfit to wear. I go shower. Remember, we were at the beach, so I had to wash my hair to get all the sand and everything out. I styled my hair. I probably took about an hour and a half to get ready from start to finish. And this is me rushing. I literally run into my house. And I remember that I was rushing a lot because I remember when I came back into the house, my mom was asking me, like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Didn't I just go out? Like, what's going on? Whatever the case is. And so I remember like having some discussion with my mom about going back out or whatever the case is. And so, you know, in the midst of all of that, of me getting ready, I get a phone call from Tiffany. And I'm thinking she's calling me to tell me that she's ready. I'm thinking she's calling to tell me that I need to meet them somewhere, or maybe they were going to come pick me up. So I answer the phone, and lo and behold,
it was me.
It's Chris. So I'm very confused at this point. I'm like, what's going on? So, like he said, he told me that she fell asleep while he was getting ready. And basically, like, she was not going to wake up to come out, you know? And so at this point, I am completely blown. I'm completely blown. I'm completely upset. I'm aggravated.
You know, think about it now. It does sound kind of a setup, but trust me, it wasn't.
Maybe not on your part. I'm not saying that it was a setup on your part, right? I'm just saying in general. I don't know whose idea it was or what was going on, but it was a lot. So at this point, I felt like I just needed to go out because I spent all of this time getting ready. Even though I was completely exhausted, I had to at least go out and do something because it just didn't make any sense at this point. And now I'm frustrated, and now I could use the drink at the bar, right? Now I could use the drink at the bar. And so when he tells me that Tiffany is not going to be able to make it, and he did say, you know, he's fine with going, but he's also fine with not going, and he understands if I don't want to go, right? And so he asked me what I wanted to do, and I really appreciated that. That was like a gentleman thing to do, honestly, because you didn't have to do that at all. But I told him, hey, like, yeah, I'm still down to go. You know, it's going to be a little weird. However, I think that we're both ready and it just makes sense. So let's just go. And then I did ask him to pick me up because, again, I was completely tired. I was not about to drive again. I was done with the nonsense. So if he wasn't going to come and pick me up, then that was the end of it, right? And so he agreed to come and pick me up, which is also very weird because I just met this guy today. I gave him my address to come and pick me up. Like, he came to my house. But at this point, like, I'm just, like, not in the right mind. I'm just aggravated. So, like, that's the situation, right?
Well, we chilled.
So now, do you want to tell them where we went and, like, how that ended up panning out? So you come to pick me up, and then what happened?
So I came to pick her up. I took her to the spot by my house. As soon as we entered in there, her cousin boyfriend at the time stopped her and be like, whoa, who is this? What's going on here?
Guys, this was like the icing on top of all of the cake.
So I'm like, nah, we're just friends. We're just friends. And
this is the icing. And step back and explain. You got to explain the optics, right?
Well, you explain the optics because when I explain stuff,
I'll just explain. I explained it from my point of view, right? Mm-hmm. I got to explain the optics of this. And you guys are probably already on the edge of your seat like, what? Yes. So
we got to the club.
We get to the bar that is in his neighborhood, right, at the time. And my cousin's ex was a DJ. And
he wasn't the ex at the time, though. He was her boyfriend at the time.
Right, yeah. And he actually was hanging out with the person that was DJing that night at the bar. They were, like, having a conversation outside of the bar. And so we pull up, he parks the car, we get out. Now remember, I met this guy that day, right? So we were not holding hands.
Nothing.
We were not holding hands. It was not like romantic. Like it was none of that, right? We are literally walking inside the place. Like we are just like we're standing right now, right? I might have looked good though because I was going out and I had to get myself together. So maybe that was it, right? Maybe it was the way that we were dressed or whatever. But I see Jay, which is the ex. Right? He was like, hey, cuzzo, whatever. He's like, who's that? Who you with? And at the time, I'm single. I'm like completely single. So like, he's probably never seen me with anyone, actually, honestly. Right? And my first reaction and the first thing that came to my mind is what came out of my mouth. I said, I don't know. That was exactly what I said. I was like, I don't know this guy. Right? He's like, what? You don't know this guy. Like, what are you doing or whatever? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, we're just going to grab drinks or whatever the case is. And so now he's like, what's going on or whatever. So now he approaches Chris and he's like, what are you doing here? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you guys doing together? And he's like, oh, like, we're just grabbing drinks. Like, I don't know, whatever the case is. He's like, okay, well, like, I'm gonna be watching. Be careful. Something like that. Something to that effect or whatever. And I'm just like, relax. Like, I don't even know this guy. So, like, that must have, like, threw him for the loop because he's like, what the hell do you mean you don't know this guy? Like, you're literally, like, about to, like, walk into this bar with this guy. Like, you just got out of his car. I just watched you get out of this man's car. Like, what do you mean? So that was the point of view when we, like, bumped into Jay, right? Which was super, super awkward.
Went in, we chilled, we talked. And we just continued talking until we just started going on dates here and there. But from my point of view, it wasn't a blind date because if you know my cousin, you know my cousin. She does random things like that. I understand why she would say it comes off as a blind date, but it wasn't because this is just my cousin. She's very spontaneous. Like, we would just go random, hey, let's go eat this, and we would drive mad far. I'm always driving. I'm the one that's always burning gas, and it's like, okay, cool.
Okay, so from that perspective, I hear what you're saying. You know your cousin, so you know what to expect from her.
Yeah.
And so therefore, like, it wasn't much of a surprise to you that there would be, like, spontaneous things happening, when you hang out with her.
But I do understand why she said cousin from everything. From even calling us and my cousin that time. And I tell you, my cousin was knocked out. She was knocked out.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I felt like it was a setup. From the very beginning, all of the circumstances that happened outside of that situation just allowed us to build some sort of a friendship very quickly because we were in very awkward situations very quickly.
Yes, definitely awkward, especially at the beach.
Very awkward. So I think that allowed us to really like get to know each other and laugh and not take things too seriously. And I think that was like the basis of us building a friendship and then eventually a relationship. So that night, I did give him my number because, again, he called me from Tiffany's phone when he was coming to pick me up. So I gave him my number so that way when he was like on his way and everything, he would be able to contact me, right? We're going somewhere together, right? So I gave him the number.
Oh,
and
yes.
Then, yes. That's when I gave you my number,
yes.
Right? Is when you were coming to pick me up. And then after we hung out, obviously we had a good time at the bar. We just drank, we hung out, we chilled, whatever the case is. And after that, he would just reach out and we would hang out with Tiffany and Jonathan and we would just have a good time. So that the end of that summer was actually really good. Like we would just like hang out as friends and things kind of like evolved from there later on.
Yes.
But I would say like the beginning of time, we were just enjoying a lot of time together. So that's our story on how we initially met in IHOP. And how that turned into a blind date scenario at the beach. We would really like to hear your perspective now that we've plugged you guys into that day and you guys really understand what happens from both of our perspective. So you guys let us know what you think.
Yeah, please tell us. Do you think it was a blind date? I don't think so.
I do. Just drop down in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. Obviously, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Please support us.
And join our family as well.
Yeah, so thank you for sticking around with us. More for you next time, and we will see you later. Bye. Guys.